You lost money today. Not in the stock market. Not because of an emergency. You lost it the same way you lose it every single day. $4.99 here. $12.47 there. $6.99 for something you forgot you're even paying for. And by the end of this month, those invisible little numbers will add up to somewhere between $250 and $600 that vanished from your account without a single conscious decision on your part. You didn't spend that money. It was extracted from you. And I know how that sounds. Dramatic, right? Pull up your bank statement. Right now if you want. Scroll past the rent, past the car payment. Just look at the small stuff. The charges under $20. Count how many you actually remember approving. Here's what's happening on the other side of that equation. There's someone your age, earning roughly what you earn, maybe even less. And that person will cross the $1 million net worth mark by the end of 2026. They don't have a trust fund. They didn't launch some viral dropshipping business. They don't even think about money most days. The difference between you and them isn't income. It's a handful of tiny behaviors so small you'd laugh if I listed them right now. Except those behaviors are worth about $347,000 over a decade. And you're not doing any of them. This isn't a budgeting video. I'm not going to tell you to stop buying coffee or track every penny in a spreadsheet you'll abandon by Thursday. That advice fails because it runs on willpower. And willpower is a terrible financial strategy. What I'm going to show you are systems. Tiny, invisible, almost embarrassingly simple systems that move money in the right direction without you having to think about it, decide about it, or feel deprived by it. And here's why this matters right now. 2026 isn't some distant future. It's months away. The gap between where you are and where you could be isn't going to be determined by some dramatic career move or lucky break. It's determined by what happens this Friday, this Tuesday, in the next 48 hours. Those micro moments are where wealth gets quietly built, and where everyone else quietly bleeds out without realizing it. Here's something no finance influencer is going to tell you because it makes their content harder to sell. The reason you're not building wealth isn't because you're irresponsible. It's because the entire modern economy is engineered to make spending invisible and saving painful. Think about it. Every subscription uses auto-renewal, so you never have to decide to keep paying. The decision was made once, months ago, and now it just runs. Every food delivery app shows you the burger before the price. Every free trial bets that you won't cancel, because canceling requires finding the settings page, clicking through 4 confirmation screens, and answering, "Are you sure?" while they offer you a discount to stay. They made quitting harder than paying. That's not an accident. That's a business model. Daniel Kahneman won a Nobel Prize for describing something called default bias. Humans overwhelmingly stick with whatever option requires no action. When spending is the default, auto-renewals, saved credit cards, one-click purchasing, money flows out automatically. When saving requires a separate decision, a login, a transfer, money stays out. The whole game is rigged toward outflow. The people who build wealth quietly don't fight that bias. They reverse it. They make saving the default and spending the thing that takes effort. That single inversion is worth more than any stock tip you'll ever hear. So let me paint a picture you'll recognize. It's a Wednesday night. You're on the couch, kinda hungry, kinda tired, definitely not cooking. You open DoorDash, you order a sandwich. On the menu, it was $8.50. By the time you hit confirm, delivery fee, service fee, small order fee, tip, it's $17.43. That's a 105% markup for not wanting to put on shoes. And I'm not judging. I've done this exact thing at 11 p.m. while telling myself, it's just this once. But that just this once happens 2-3 times a week. That's almost $1,700 a year. Not on food, on the delivery layer wrapped around the food. Stack those markups on top of the subscriptions you forgot. The convenience upgrades at the grocery store. The $4.50 pre-cut fruit when the whole pineapple is $2.99 right next to it. The vending machine because walking 10 minutes felt like too much. For a median income earner, these micro-leaks total between $3,000 and $7,000 per year. That's not a vacation fund. That's seed money for an investment account that compounds for decades. And the reason you don't feel it bleeding is because of something Richard Thaler, another economist, another Nobel Prize, calls mental accounting. Your brain doesn't treat all money the same. A $950 impulse purchase triggers guilt, deliberation, maybe a call to a friend. But 12 charges of $79 spread across a year? They pass through your brain undetected, below the radar. The whole subscription economy is built on this insight. Price anything under $11 a month, and the human brain files it as noise. That's the trap. That's what I call the $11 trap. Small enough to ignore, repeated enough to devastate. I did my own version of this audit last year and found something that still bothers me. I'd been paying $6.99 a month for a language learning app I downloaded in 2021. I opened it maybe 4 times, never got past lesson 4. That's $167 I spent to learn how to say, "The cat is on the table" in Portuguese. No, obrigado. That was my wake-up call. Not a book, not a podcast. A $6.99 charge on my credit card for an app I'd forgotten existed. So here's the first habit. I call it the Friday leak audit, and it takes 90 seconds. Every Friday evening, open your bank app. Scroll through the week's transactions. Only the ones under $20. For each one, ask yourself one question. Would I have walked into a store and handed someone cash for this? If the answer is no, that's a leak. Don't cancel anything yet. Don't change anything. Just count. Write the weekly total on a sticky note and put it somewhere you'll see it. On your monitor, on your bathroom mirror, on the fridge next to the DoorDash magnet. That's it. That's the whole habit. And before you tell me that's too simple to work, Thaler's own research shows that simply making people look at their small recurring charges reduces discretionary spending by 15 to 20%. No willpower required. No budget app. No discipline. Just awareness. The sticky note makes the invisible visible, and your brain does the rest because it turns out you're not actually bad with money. You just couldn't see where it was going. The Friday leak audit stops the bleeding, but plugging leaks only gets you to 0. It doesn't build anything. For that, you need money moving in the other direction, automatically, invisibly, and without it ever feeling like sacrifice. In 2004, 2 economists, Richard Thaler, him again, and Shlomo Benartzi, ran an experiment that quietly changed how millions of Americans build wealth. They didn't teach anyone about investing, didn't hand out budgets. They changed one checkbox. Instead of asking employees to opt into a retirement savings plan, they made enrollment automatic and gave people the option to opt out. Enrollment jumped from 49% to 86% overnight. And here's the part that should rearrange how you think about money. Almost nobody opted out. Not because they couldn't. The form was right there. But opting out required effort. Filling out paperwork, making a decision, actively choosing to stop saving. And that tiny bit of friction was enough to keep billions of dollars flowing in the right direction. A checkbox. That's what separated the people who retired with savings from the people who didn't. Now let me bring this into your life. Because you can use the exact same principle. Right now, today, without an employer, without a 401k, without anyone's permission. I call it the 1% redirect. And it works like this. Set up an automatic transfer from your checking account to a separate savings account. High yield if possible. Most of them are paying around 4 to 5% right now with 0 effort on your part. The amount? $15. Every payday. That's it. You're already thinking it. $15? That's nothing. That's not going to make me a millionaire. And you're right. $15 alone won't. But here's what $15 does that you're not seeing. Right now, you are someone who doesn't save. That's your financial identity. The moment $15 starts moving automatically, every 2 weeks without you touching it, you become someone who does. And identity shifts change behavior in ways that willpower never could. Because once you see yourself as a person who saves, increasing the amount stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like momentum. The hardest part of building wealth isn't saving $500 a month, it's saving the first 15. Think of it like adjusting the angle of a ship's rudder by half a degree. Standing on the deck, you feel nothing. Zero change. But 6 months later, you're on a completely different continent than the ship next to you that kept its rudder straight. $15 is your half-degree turn. You won't feel it, but you'll feel where you end up. Now here's where the Thaler research gets really useful. They tested something called Save More Tomorrow. Instead of asking people to save more right now, which triggers loss aversion and usually fails, they asked people to commit to saving more every time they got a raise in the future. People said yes overwhelmingly, because it didn't cost them anything today. And over 5 years, participants in that program saved 4 times more than people who tried to save a fixed percentage from the start. You can do this yourself. Every time your income increases, a raise, a tax refund, a freelance gig, even a birthday check from your grandmother, bump the auto transfer by $5. Just 5. You were already living without that money, so your brain never registers the loss. By month 18, you're transferring $35 per paycheck without ever having decided to save more. After 3 years, at a 4-5% high yield rate, you're sitting on almost $2,800 you forgot you were building. Scale that into an investment account over a decade, and you're looking at $40,000 to $60,000. From amounts that started as too small to matter. If this is clicking for you, if something just shifted in how you're thinking about this, hit that like button. Not as a favor to me, because the algorithm uses that signal to push this to other people who need to hear it. And frankly, more people need to hear it than the guy telling them to buy crypto at 2 a.m. Okay, so now you've plugged the leaks and set money flowing in the right direction, both on autopilot, both without discipline. But there's one final piece that separates the people who save a little from the people who actually build wealth, and it has nothing to do with money. It has to do with when you make decisions. Here's something weird about people who build wealth quietly. Ask them when they made their most important financial decisions, and they can't tell you. Not because the decisions were forgettable, but because they happened on a random Tuesday at 7:15 p.m., or a Thursday morning before coffee, or a Sunday night while folding laundry. No dramatic moment. No, this is the year I changed my life. They just did it on an ordinary day. And that's exactly why it worked. There's a psychologist named Peter Gollwitzer who spent years studying the gap between intention and action. What he found is that people who attach a behavior to a specific situation, when X happens, I will do Y, are 2 to 3 times more likely to follow through than people who just intend to do it someday. He calls these implementation intentions. They work because they remove motivation from the equation. You don't have to feel ready. The trigger does the work. And this is where most people lose the money game. You know what to do. You've watched the videos. Read the Reddit threads. Saved the Instagram posts. But knowing and doing are separated by a canyon called, I'll start when I feel ready. That moment never arrives. Because financial decisions feel boring and slightly intimidating, your brain postpones them to a better time that doesn't exist. The person who quietly built wealth didn't wait to feel ready. They attached the decision to a moment so boring their brain couldn't justify putting it off. So here are 4 triggers you can set up this week. Not concepts, triggers. The payday trigger. When your paycheck notification hits your phone, you transfer your set amount to savings before you open any other app, before Instagram, before texts. The money moves in the dopamine window of receiving your paycheck, while your brain is riding the little high of money arrived before it starts allocating that money to wants. The cart trigger. When you're about to check out online and the total crosses $30, you close the tab. You wait 48 hours. That's it. Research by Giuliano Laran at the University of Miami found that 70% of impulse purchases over $25 get abandoned when a 48-hour cooling period is introduced. The desire doesn't survive the wait. Your future self will either still want it and buy it deliberately, or forget it existed. Either way, you win. The Tuesday check-in. Every Tuesday at 8 p.m. you open your savings account and look at the balance. 3 minutes. That's it. Why Tuesday? Because Tuesday is the most boring day of the week. No Monday dread, no Friday energy, no weekend plans clouding your head. Picture it? You're on the couch, dinner's done, some rerun is on in the background, nothing is happening. You pull out your phone, open the app, and look at a number that's slightly bigger than it was last Tuesday. That tiny moment of, oh, it grew, is more powerful than any motivational video you've ever watched. Because it's not abstract. It's your money, in your account, getting bigger while you did nothing. The windfall rule. When unexpected money shows up, a refund, a cash gift, a bonus, selling something on Facebook Marketplace, 50% goes to savings before you decide what to do with the rest. That before is everything. The money moves first. Then you spend what's left guilt-free. This pre-decision eliminates the internal negotiation where your brain talks you into blowing the whole thing because it's extra anyway. 4 triggers. None of them require motivation. None of them require financial knowledge. They're just decisions made in advance, attached to moments so mundane your brain doesn't fight them. And that's the whole system. Step back and look at what just happened. You've been told your entire life that getting rich requires big moves, a killer investment, a genius business idea, a salary that makes your friends jealous. But the people who actually build wealth in their 20s and 30s didn't do any of that. They plugged invisible leaks on a Friday night. They set up a $15 auto transfer and forgot about it. They attached financial decisions to moments so boring their brain never pushed back. No spreadsheets, no sacrifice, just a handful of tiny behaviors that compounded while they lived their normal life. I'm not going to recap everything. You heard it. You know the leaks exist. You know the redirect works. You know the triggers make it automatic. The only question left is whether you're going to do something in the next 2 minutes, or whether you'll bookmark this video, tell yourself you'll start next month, and do exactly what you've always done. Here's what I want you to do before this video ends. Open your banking app. Set up an automatic transfer of $15 from checking to savings. Set it to repeat every payday. It takes 90 seconds. You won't feel it leave. You won't miss it. But 6 months from now, you'll open that account and see a number that wasn't there before, built entirely by a decision you made on a random day, while watching a YouTube video, probably on your couch. That's how it starts. Not with a plan, not with a goal, not with a vision board. With $15 and 90 seconds. And I know, your brain is telling you $15 is too small to matter. Good. That's exactly what makes it work. If it felt significant, you'd negotiate with yourself. You'd hesitate. You'd think about it, which is code for never do it. $15 is so small your brain can't even justify putting up a fight. And by the time it figures out what happened, the habit is already running, and the money is already somewhere you can't easily touch. That's not a flaw in the strategy. That's the entire strategy. Building wealth doesn't feel like what you think it feels like. It doesn't feel like sacrifice. It doesn't feel like discipline. It feels like nothing. It feels like a Tuesday. And then one day you open an account you forgot about, and there's a number there that makes you stop scrolling. That quiet pause, that wait, when did this happen? That's what building wealth actually feels like. And it starts with the most boring, unglamorous $15 you'll ever move. Millionaires aren't made on the days that feel important. They're made on the Tuesdays no one remembers. Make this your Tuesday. Drop $15 in the comments if you set up the transfer while watching this. And if this made something click you weren't expecting, subscribe. I make the kind of content that makes wealth building feel invisible instead of impossible. Go set up the transfer.